This is TWiT.
The Google versus DOJ trial is going on right now. And Corey has a piece on his blog, pluralistic.net, talking about the memos. Google did not want the trial exhibits made public. They asked the judge, not because it was proprietary business information, but because it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. The judge said, well, no, I think the public has a right to know. And a lot of this is online. But I've been searching through it. You can actually go and look at some admittedly embarrassing slideshows from Google and so forth, including many memos. But there's a little controversy. We were talking about this before the show. I want to make sure you guys were up to speed on this. There is a woman who used to be an executive at DuckDuckGo. She was at the Federal Trade Commission, Megan Gray, and she was at the trial and saw a slide that asserted something pretty serious. For a long time, Google has called it semantic matching. And they've admitted to this, where when you enter in a search result on Google, it will amend it behind the scenes. You don't even see it. It doesn't show up in the box before it sends it off to the search tool. So if you type, Corey points out, if you type the word WEDS, W-E-D-S, it figures, oh, you're talking Wednesday, and will actually add Wednesday to the search term. You don't see that. It gives you better search results. That seems like a good idea. Megan wrote an editorial on Wired.com in which she said this slide finally admitted something many of us have thought for a long time, that Google is also adding advertisers' names to the search term, hidden behind the scenes. So when you do a query like children's clothing, Google secretly adds the brand name of a kid's clothing manufacturer to the query. This has two financial benefits to Google. One, you're going to see that advertiser's entry in the search results because you put the name in, except you didn't. Two, there's another side benefit. The way Google works, people buy negative with an ad auction. People might buy a competitor's name to make sure their ad goes next to the competitors. So it's, profit all around. Everybody, they get a lot more money and you get a lot more ads. So she says she saw this in the slide. Many people have suspected. Corey thought so too. Wired just pulled the story down, redacted it, with this note from Wired leadership. After careful review of the op-ed, how Google alters search queries to get at your wallet, and relevant material provided to us following its publication. Who do you think that material might have come from? Wired's editorial leadership has determined the story does not meet our standards. It has been removed. Now, I asked Corey, because Corey's referred to this article and he wrote about it. I asked Corey, and he said, he's just on Mastodon, he said, I'm told Megan is about to post more details. So I'd be very curious what the author of that op-ed thinks. Obviously, Condé Nast, the owners of Wired, didn't want to get sued for libel. We don't know if it happens. It wouldn't surprise me if it happens. To me, if it does, this is the smoking gun. I looked through all the trial materials. I could not find that slide. So it may have been redacted. It may not be yet on the website. But I couldn't find that slide. What do you guys think?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of material that has been redacted from.
If you look at it, even the stuff that's in public has big redacteds all over it. Yeah.
Right. So it's entirely possible that you may never find it, or at least not until after the trial's over.
And I think Wired's got, Wired is a very credible organization. Of course, I think they've demonstrated their commitment to holding people's feet to the fire a bunch, but I find it is a little tricky because they're saying we removed this because it doesn't meet our editorial standards based on information we can't share with you, which I understand why you would both want to remove it and also state that, but then I feel like there has to be an obligation to the reader and the larger community that you say at a future point we'll be able to explain this further, which they're not offering. Maybe they can't, but it does seem to now look like, it looks like a conspiracy even if it doesn't, because it smells like a voice was silenced even if the silencing was because information was unintentionally presented in a, I'm not suggesting a
it's not a retraction. It's not a retraction. If it's a retraction, they would say, we've received word from Google. They do not do this. It's not true. We're retracting it. It's not that.
Editorial standards is weird. What was not so that's tricky. And then we have, of course, Danny Sullivan, formerly of Search Engine Watch for many, many years, joined the beast. He's inside Google and posts on X, Twitter as search liaison for Google. And, his response to this, without citing the Wired piece, which is no longer up, is essentially saying we don't do this. Says the editorial said, just flat out deletes queries and replaces them with one with monetized better. We don't. And he provided some information and links and so forth. And he's an incredibly credible chap before and after joining Google, but he's within a machine that spits out what it needs to. I would find it heartbreaking to ever discover that he was putting out something misleading. I would think he would quit rather than do that.
There's a very strong possibility that he doesn't know the answer. So much of this is so buried deep within so many of the teams that work at Google. Google's products are so enormous now. And it's really hard to know, it's quite possible that one team is working on this while another has no idea or actively denies that it exists, right?
They do that intentionally, right? Because Danny said, we don't, which is definitive, but then later it may be, it turns out there's an Area 51 that nobody except Sergey knows about, or Larry, and in fact, they were doing this. It was inserted into the code, and nobody else in the company was aware for plausible deniability.
Yeah, but of course, it's also possible that we don't know what the slide was that Megan Gray saw.
We might.
It may.
Let me put this up, and you can add this. This is Adam Kovacevic, who used to work at Google. Says, I asked Google PR for a copy of the slide the Wired piece referred to. Here's what they sent. Advertisers benefit via closing recall gaps. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of Nikolai Kidswear.
Do we have any other context around this slide?
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
Yeah, because what I was getting at was that it may be that this was from the mountains of discovery material that they're presenting, this may have been part of a deck that they were presenting to advertisers that as an idea, here's something we could do. It's possible that they never actually implemented it or never deployed it. So, I'm not trying to, let Google off the hook here, but just trying to give some context that, this single slide out of all of this other data.
It's out of context.
So we don't know. We don't know what the context was.
Yeah. And you could see how Megan Gray might see this. And because it was long-held belief, both at FTC and DuckDuckGo, that Google was doing this, that this confirmed confirmation bias, something she already believed. Maybe it doesn't. So I'm not going to say for one way or the other. I do hope, though, that if this is the case, this will come out at trial. If it is the case, I think the FTC has a open and shut case against Google. Even in the original PageRank paper that Larry and Sergey published 23 years ago, it said, we can't sell ads because that would poison our well. It would poison the search results. It's clearly a conflict of interest that all of the revenue for Google search comes from advertisers. There's got to be, if they're not doing this, there must have been strong internal pressure to do this. And if they resisted, if they did not be evil, I hope that's the case. You can read Search Liaison Danny Sullivan's long rebuttal, although, as you said, he doesn't mention Wired or Megan Gray.
Google, maybe we can all agree. I don't know if we can all agree on this. Google's search results are terrible. I can hardly find anything on the site anymore. I was trying to find the most technical thing. I needed to find a string time conversion function for Perl, and I'd forgotten how to use it. It took me 5 minutes. I should have gone to ChatGPT. It took me 5 minutes of searching on Google to find a result that actually was accurate and wasn't just one of those regurgitated things. So, Google is already sort of terrible. And so if they're doing this, yes, there is a distinct consequence for the trial, obviously, and for the future of how they interact. But it's also, they have ruined search for themselves, regardless of what they're doing monetarily.
Yeah, I think that's all we have to say is just objectively, the results on Google search aren't as good as they used to be. They're muddied.
Yeah.
And that's too bad.
Hey folks, I'm Ant Pruitt and I have a question for you. How do you think your hardworking team, with a Club TWiT corporate subscription plan, of course, show your appreciation and reward your tech team with a subscription to Club TWiT? Keep everyone informed and entertained with podcasts covering the latest in tech. With the Club TWiT subscription, they get access to all of our podcasts ad-free. And they also get access to our members-only Discord, access to exclusive outtakes and behind-the-scenes footage and special content like the fireside chats that I enjoy hosting. Plus, they also get shows like Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows, and the Untitled Linux Show. So, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and look for corporate plans for complete details.